A ceasefire between Iran and Israel has been achieved, and more questions than answers arise after the ceasefire and the 12-day war between the two countries after Israel initiated an aggression and an act of terror against Iran. What's going to happen next? Is this going to be the end of it? Are we expecting a new round between the two countries? Was Iran wrong to stop? And one of the most important questions is, what's going to happen with the Gaza Strip? We're going to begin with what happened in the final day, especially in the final few hours between Israel and Iran and the exchanges between them. Iran kept some of its most dangerous attacks up until the last second, with a third-generation missile landing in the southern city of Beersheba, or Be'er Saba, in the southern part of occupied Palestine. And the destruction was immense, as we can see in this video over here. There were more images of the damage itself, and the damage has been some of the biggest damage that Israel sustained in a very long time. Of course, Iran destroyed many other parts of Israel in terms of buildings, strategic places, bases, oil factories, and of course the military-industrial complex locations, alongside strategic security and intelligence locations inside of Israel. So very, very extensive damage, and the Israelis, they really were not expecting this level of damage coming from Iran. And this was one of the reasons that Iran, or that Israel, was asking for a ceasefire, was actually begging for a ceasefire between them and Iran. We can see levels of destruction that haven't been seen before in Israel, a destruction of a whole building and many other buildings too. This building in particular had an Israeli commander living in it, and he was killed alongside at least 8 others, according to Israeli confirmations. And they were killed inside the bunker, inside the shelters. The Iranian missiles penetrate Israel's shelter systems that are inside of Israeli buildings and Israeli homes. This shows you that the Iranian missiles are no joke. And from an Israeli perspective, they're not prepared for it. The whole Israeli infrastructure isn't prepared for Iranian missiles. So what happened exactly in the last few hours? Well, the American president, Donald Trump, after Iran carried out an attack on Al-Udaid base in Qatar, said that the attack was ineffective and the Iranians told us. And then afterwards, he started to push for a ceasefire and actually declared a ceasefire. It wasn't agreed upon entirely, especially with regards to timing. Israel claimed that they had one missile landing on them and they wanted to wage an attack against Iran, following which they received criticism from Donald Trump, unprecedented criticism actually, that Israel has never seen before from an American president, including swear words too, said that the Israelis were going there and we agreed on a ceasefire. Clearly, Benjamin Netanyahu breached some sort of an agreement. However, based on the Israeli response and the Israeli confirmations, actually, they did not carry out this attack, and it was only the final large blow came from Iran in that attack that I showed you in the earlier video. And from Donald Trump's statements, by the way, they were also taken with a lot of shock inside of Israel, and the Israeli media was talking about this intensively. One of these articles came in the Israeli Ma'ariv. Netanyahu has never been reprimanded like this. Trump showered him. There was also another article talking about the level of effect that this had, and the fact that this was a complete shock and an embarrassment for Israel, the way that Donald Trump spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. complete shock in Israel and embarrassment in the IDF. And of course, Donald Trump's statements, they came after the Israelis, according to him, breached that agreement, but he ordered them to go back, said the fighter jets are going to go back now. And indeed, in the Israeli Air Force, they confirmed that they had to turn back. And they said that Benjamin Netanyahu ordered them to go back after they were confused what to do. They were ordered to carry out this operation, and they were forced to return. This was followed by celebrations coming from Iran. The Iranian people were celebrating the victory over Israel. And of course, many people ask, is this a victory for Israel? Is this a victory for Iran? And we're going to talk about that intensively too. Now, from an Israeli perspective, and this is what we need to understand. These were the images that came from Iran, by the way. People were celebrating, Iran also publishing symbolic images here of Iranian soldiers preparing to get in the gates of occupied Palestine, signaling that they are looking to liberate Palestine. At the end of the day, Iran has constantly been against Israel and always spoke about the need to eliminate Israel as a state. From an Israeli perspective, what we need to understand is Israel started this aggression against Iran. And the Israeli aims out of this campaign were to, number one, take down the Iranian government and the Iranian establishment. More and more reports are coming now of Israel speaking and calling with the Iranian officials, warning them from remaining with the establishment, threatening to kill them if they do. Sabotage and terrorism all across Iran, targeting police stations, targeting key locations that belong to the Iranian government. So the attempt was to topple down the Iranian government and instill a puppet regime led by the son of the Shah. That did not work. The second aim of Israel was to completely eliminate the nuclear program of Iran. That did not work. The third aim of Israel was to eliminate Iran's strategic missile capabilities, and that did not work. Therefore, by military definition of the aims of the war that were published clearly by Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel failed. Iran thwarted that attempt and actually landed severe blows on the state of Israel. That means Iran won, and that means that Israel lost. Now, why did Israel finish so quickly even after the United States targeted the Fordo? Well, it's because they realized they are unprepared against Iran, and that this was an adventure that they clearly miscalculated. Benjamin Netanyahu was warned multiple times by the Americans and by people in the Israeli establishment too, including the military and intelligence as well, that they should not go on an all-out war against Iran if they did not have the United States participating with them completely and fully from the get-go. That didn't happen. Of course, there are lots of question marks on whether the United States is able to take down Iran with Israel too. If they had the capacity, they were most likely go ahead with Israel and take down the Iranian establishment. But the fact of the matter is they're unable to. So by those definitions, especially the military definition of any war that is waged against the country, Israel failed, like it failed in Gaza and still is failing. Israel declared that they want to eliminate the Hamas in Gaza, for example. They didn't. 2 years, by the way. And we're talking about Gaza, not Iran, which shows you again the level of power of the Palestinian resistance and the bravery of the Palestinian resistance. Therefore, Israel failed twice. Actually, they failed with Lebanon too. Hezbollah are only getting the momentum back, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the Israelis are saying in relation to all of this. Donald Trump himself also said that there is a victory for Iran. This was one of his recent statements here. There's also a victory for Iran here. They have a country. Israel was also hit very hard. The ballistic missiles hit it hard. Bibi should be proud. That's a statement coming from Donald Trump. And he also said that this is bringing a deal with Gaza closer. According to him, Witkoff told him a deal with Gaza was imminent, according to the latest statements from Donald Trump, which leads us to Gaza and how it affects the war on Gaza. Well, after this war finished between Israel and Iran, more and more statements came from Israeli figures talking about, what Israel is doing exactly, and why are they still waging war in Gaza? And this came from ministers in the Netanyahu government. For example, we had this statement here from Gafni, member of the Yehadut HaTorah. He calls for an end to the fighting in Gaza and return of the kidnapped. Then he, of course, had attacks from religious Zionism, calling him shameful and disgraceful. And the families of the prisoners of war were also saying that the war has exhausted itself. What are we still doing in Gaza? This came after a huge ambush came from the Palestinian resistance that targeted an Israeli troop carrier, killing 7 of them. This was confirmed inside of Israel, alongside other operations that the Palestinian resistance published of them sniping the child-killing terrorist forces of Israel inside of the Gaza Strip. Therefore, more pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war now. People are telling him that you need to end it. There are signs that things are going towards that direction. Benjamin Netanyahu was already saying that we're close to a deal in Gaza even before the war on Iran began. It's not just Gaza, and of course I'll get to all of the details and what they're saying in Israel too, especially Yitzhak Brik, who was the previous major general in Israel, talking about how badly Israel is doing. International countries, like international companies like Amazon, for example, they're no longer dealing with Israel. Even after the ceasefire, after all of that, they're not going to be dealing with Israel anymore. More and more companies are leaving the country, like many Israelis, like many Israeli companies, like many wealthy Israeli people too. Some of the largest businesses took out all of their money from Israel, even in 2024, after Netanyahu wasn't reaching a deal with Gaza. So it's a catastrophic situation for them. Then I wanted to talk to you about Israel's situation itself. The previous Israeli Major General, Yitzhak Brik, who I quoted many times during this war and genocide in Gaza, he's saying that our ground army has collapsed. He had this article in the Israeli Ma'ariv saying that while the Air Force demonstrates excellence in Iran, according to him, the ground army collapses in Gaza with 7 dead in a single incident. Faced with growing threats from Turkey, Jordan, Egypt, and Hezbollah, Israel remains exposed without a proper ground force. He has been criticizing Israel and the army of making the ground forces of Israel smaller. And in this article, he is highlighting how much damage Benjamin Netanyahu is inflicting on the ground forces because of his continued genocide inside of the Gaza Strip. As a matter of fact, and a part of his article, he mentioned this: a bunch of fools, ignoramuses, and people of other countries are backing the chief of staff, the minister of defense, and the prime minister in their depraved path in Gaza. This is a complete antithesis, 180 degrees between the capabilities of the Air Force and the capabilities of the ground army. Without a strong ground army, we risk losing the country to all the dark forces that are gaining strength within our borders. He's confirming and admitting we cannot defeat Hamas alone. We have not defeated Hezbollah and it's regaining strength. The Turks have entered Syria, a strong army that threatens the state of Israel. Along with the 300 kilometers of the Jordanian border, a guerrilla force is currently being built with the support of Iran, which is 10 times more dangerous than Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Egypt, which has the strongest army in the Middle East, according to Brick, is turning its back on us and is training for war with Israel. Judea and Samaria is a barrel of explosives, and it is only a matter of time before it explodes. thousands of extremists within the state of Israel who, on command, will come out of their homes in their thousands and flood the streets, harming and destroying anyone who stands in their way. And in the face of the enemies mentioned, we do not have ground forces to stand up to them and defend the country and attack back. So, a clear warning sign coming from Yitzhak Brik. He also ended this article by saying, the war continues solely because of the government's survival considerations. It's paramount importance. It's of paramount importance that within the framework of the agreements between the US and the Iranians, Israel agrees to end the war in the Gaza Strip, release all the hostages, prevent further casualties, and save the honor of the ground army. Only then can we begin its rehabilitation so that it can defend the country's borders when the time comes with the offensive and decisive capabilities. That means Brik here is confirming what has been speculated but not confirmed, which is the agreement between the United States and Iran include the Gaza Strip. They haven't made that public, but the people with knowledge in Israel, including this Major General, they know that very well. Therefore, what happened in Iran is not detached from the Gaza Strip. It's directly linked with the Gaza Strip. As a matter of fact, the 3 historic attacks of Iran on Israel came after the Al-Aqsa flood began. There are many people criticizing Iran, and there were notions that, again, might be accurate, of Israel being weak, therefore Iran should continue. However, the Iranians, they have their own calculations. And the Palestinian case isn't solely the responsibility of the Iranian people and the Iranian state. It's the responsibility of all humanity, of every human being with a functioning moral compass who can do something. Speaking up, protesting, posting, social activism, online activism, political activism, all of that. It's a collective responsibility on all of humanity. And of course, Iran, it took the majority of the responsibility. We need to understand what Iran has been doing for the Palestinian case. Iran has been the biggest supporter of Palestine, relentless. And it's not supporting a certain group. Iran has been supporting Palestine ever since the Islamic Revolution in 1979, declaring it one of its main objectives, Palestine, and liberating Palestine, before organizations like Hamas were even established. And they have been supporting and sacrificing and arming and financially supporting and logistics and expertise for all of this time. So that is all proving that Iran is a major factor in this, and Iran, and this recent blow that Iran gave to Israel in True Promise 3 could be the final straw in the war in Gaza. Now, that does not mean, even if we have a ceasefire tomorrow with Gaza, and there's an agreement and there's a de-escalation, that things will end. There is a much better chance for Gaza to have a ceasefire, as confirmed by Israeli sources now, and as it has been speculated, by the way. This does not mean that this is the end of the story. As a matter of fact, this only makes things more tense for the coming periods. Why? Because Israel as a state hasn't changed its formation and the way it's being run. It's still a genocidal, apartheid entity of terror run by Zionism. And so long as Israel is in the way it has been always formed, by the way, run by this establishment, this regime, run by Zionism, a violent ideology that is based on ethnocracy, religious supremacy, terrorism, ethnic cleansing, and constant attacks against the Palestinian people, nothing will stop. Yes, there might be certain agreements that could be for several years, for example. However, Israel is still as it is, and we still haven't spoken about the core and basic rights of the Palestinian people. This is a ceasefire with the Gaza Strip. We have no solution for the West Bank. We have no solution for the regime of supremacy in historical Palestine. There is no answer for the Palestinian refugees who have been expelled from their homes, and there are no equal rights for Palestinians between the Jordan River to the sea. That only makes it a case that will constantly grow and grow more, especially because these things haven't been met. Therefore, even if we have a de-escalation, and even if there's a temporary deal with Iran or a temporary deal with Gaza, things might still go on. And that is, again, assuming that there will be a ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu is still in power. Benjamin Netanyahu has proven time after time that he breaches agreements. The American administration is a participant in the genocide, whether Donald Trump applied pressure or not on Benjamin Netanyahu. Donald Trump is, at the end of the day, a murderer. He has blood on his hands. He has been arming Israel. He is a liar. He has no credibility whatsoever, and he constantly breaches agreements as well. All of that shows you that any de-escalation will be very tense, and there would be more likelihood of any escalation at any point, unless there are concrete solutions. The concrete solutions are yet, at the moment, nowhere to be seen. So far, they're nowhere to be seen. Any all-out solution would include equal rights between the Jordan River to the sea and the historical rights for the Palestinian people. So long as that's not going to happen, expect anything to explode. In the meantime, the Iranians will be monitoring what the Americans are doing. The Israelis will be trying to understand how hard they were hit. The blows that Iran gave them were unprecedented, and Israel is now realizing that it does not have an answer to the Iranian missiles. Now, some people might say, well, Israel might develop something to provide an answer for the Iranian missiles, and the answer is no. Israel's only potential of having something more superior to their capabilities of taking down any Iranian missiles would be laser technology. That's something that Israel is still working on. That's a technology that's still in process. However, even with the laser technology, if they would have, for example, an air defense system based on laser technology, it would have many challenges to do with the power, to do with the weather, to do with everything related to the distance, altitude. And it would also prove to be highly ineffective with hypersonic missiles. The third generation missiles that Iran landed, no one has an answer to them. No air defense systems, no nothing, even with fighter jets in the air. That means Israel will have to start conceding more unless it decides to go on a suicide mission against Iran, in which case Iran will be prepared to land an even bigger blow on Israel. Because if we want to look at the pattern of Iranian responses for Israeli aggressions, which were True Promise 1, True Promise 2, and True Promise 3, we understand very many things here. Number one is that Iran is a genuine country of resistance. Anyone criticizing Iran is trying to hide his country's shameful position. Some people are saying that, it was a show, and previous attacks were a show. Attacks were ineffective, for example. They agreed between them and the United States and with Israel. Iran is the only country in its entirety, apart from the resistance fronts, of course, that carried out such intense attacks on Israel directly, putting itself at risk. True Promise 1 was a response to an assassination that happened against the consulate in Syria at the time, very limited. True Promise 2 came as a response to the assassination of the martyr Haniya and the martyr Nasrallah, and also as a response to the killings in Gaza. They said it was for the innocent children of Gaza too. It was bigger than True Promise 2. True Promise 3, we saw what happened, True Promise 3. 12 days of intense bombardments of Israeli bases the Israeli military intelligence complex, the Israeli energy bases, Israeli power stations, Israeli intelligence bases, even secret locations embedded in civilian society. Iran destroyed all of that. Therefore, if we are even talking about the prospect of something coming in the future, assuming the genocide murderers in Israel will continue their barbarism and won't start to take steps back and potentially get rid of Benjamin Netanyahu, that would be even more serious than what we have seen so far, because the pattern shows us that with every round that Israel had with Iran, it only got more intense. And if there would be another round, and there is a very high likelihood that there would be another round, that would be a completely devastating blow for Israel, and it could also include very dramatic changes for the future as well.